Welcome to Sausage Links, where we connect the community-supported self-advocacy survival guide, aka Sausage, with the messy reality of being intersectional, neurodivergent adults. This is your no BS zone for real talk about advocacy and survival when systems weren't built for us. In every episode, we dive into how strategies from this groundbreaking collaborative resource actually work when you're navigating inaccessible healthcare, workplace discrimination, housing crisis, and other systemic barriers that intersectional neurodivergent folks face daily. Here's what we're not doing. Pretending self-care fixes systemic oppression. Sugarcoating that advocacy is exhausting when you're already marginalized. Or offering feel-good platitudes that ignore how racism, ableism, and transphobia compound our challenges. Here's what we are doing. Taking Sausage's community-centered, intersectional approach and applying it to what's happening right now. Healthcare restrictions targeting trans neurodivergent folks? We'll talk wellness advocacy strategies. Disability benefits getting slashed? Community-supported navigation. BS narratives about neurodivergent people? We'll counter misinformation, not as abstract concepts, but as survival tools. This podcast is by and for neurodivergent adults tired of being told to try harder, while systems actively work against us. We share what's actually working, call out what isn't, and build community-supported advocacy networks that keep us alive and fighting. Grab your fidgets, noise-canceling headphones, and whatever else you need to engage safely. We're about to get real about what it takes to build the world we deserve. Let's link up and dive in.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Sausage Links. I am one of your hosts, Jeannie V. For those of you who are joining us live, YouTube at Umbrella Opens Doors is, sort of the landing pad for the majority of people to find the live broadcast. We broadcast live on most Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. And that would be 7 a.m. for those of you on the West Coast. So just some real quick housekeeping. If you are tuning in and you've been listening to the podcast chronologically, you heard us say last week a to be continued on the subject matter of self-advocacy and community-based cooperation in doing self-advocacy. When we started looking at show notes and the information that we had, we decided, you know what, we've touched on everything. So this is not a continuation of the last episode. That conversation we've decided pretty much was concluded. We're moving on with a new subject today. The title of this episode is Choosing to Mask, Protecting or Expressing Ourselves. Once again, Jeannie V. I am a transgender woman, and I am in my office, which happens to be a lovely shade of boiled egg yolk, yellow. Well, it is. Doesn't it look like a boiled egg yolk? I mean, over my shoulder, there is a mirror with black framing on it. I am in a striped top with a cowl neckline. Hair is about shoulder length today. It's brown auburn, and my glasses are brown, almost semi-cat eye in appearance. And with me right now is AJ, my co-host, co-partner, co-everything. Good morning, AJ.
Hello, Jeannie. I am AJ Locascio. I am the founder and executive director at Umbrella ND, and we are bringing sausage to the public, and therefore Sausage Links is needed, and that's why we're here. I am wearing big headphones with a microphone. I have black and blue curly hair shaved on one side, big nerdy glasses. I'm wearing a gray t-shirt, and with me, as always, is Widget in his gray sling across my shoulder, and he is fast asleep, curled up in that little pouch of his.
And that is, typically where he will remain because he gets comfy whenever we're talking. So, as I said, today's episode is choosing to mask, protecting or expressing ourselves. Now, Sausage Links, we try to sort of narrow in, if you can use the term narrow, to describe such a wide-based experience of neurodiversity. Neurodivergent people, have experienced life in, well, there's according to the sources that we have, there are 400 different forms of neurodivergent experience. And with Sausage Links, we kind of narrow in on those 400 types. And even that is not an inclusive number of experiences that are out there. So we try to give special attention.
That's just the number of medicalized conditions that have been defined that have to do with the brain or the nervous system.
Right. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about neurodivergent. We're talking about something that has interacted with how we take in information, process information, or use that information to interact with the world. That's what we're talking about. And we go beyond the autism and the ADHD conversations. For this episode, we're talking about the subject of masking. And in many cases, masking is seen as a negative. And it is seen as something that we should not have to do, especially if we are integrating into mainstream society. But today we're going to look at masking from a slightly different perspective. We're going to be looking at issues of authenticity, which are very integral to unmasking, versus safety, where we're talking about when is it safe to do it, where is it safe to do it, who is it safe to do it with. So let's get into this conversation. If you have questions and you happen to be joining us on YouTube, you can type those into the chat. They pop up for us. We can deal with those questions as they come up. But if you're here listening in, let's talk about moving from masking versus unmasking to masking choices and autonomy. AJ.
Consent. Yeah, this is where we really want to talk about consent. And to me, it's a little bit ironic that within the community there are arguments about the medical model versus the social model. And as you were talking about those 400 different conditions that are listed out by the Neurological Institute, people can also find that on brainfacts.org. They can find that list of 400 on there as well. There's a big argument about we want to move from the medical model to the social model. And so I know somebody listening is going, oh, they're only talking about the medical stuff. I need to remind them that the social model is there. And that's really where this masking piece comes in, because there are people who do not have any kind of diagnosed or diagnosable condition, medical issue, but their experience in the world is that of neurodivergence.
Yes.
And for many, many reasons that can happen. And so when we're talking about this masking, and this is presenting or acting like somebody other than who you really truly are. It's expending energy to, put on a proverbial mask.
Right.
And the conversation is you should be able to unmask everywhere, and you should just be able to be yourself. And I came to you this morning and I said, I have a real issue with this, because I can't unmask at the grocery store. If I were to unmask at the grocery store, I would be lying in a fetal position in the middle of an aisle somewhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So for me, I do consensually choose a mask when I go to the grocery store, and I choose to, I call it role play.
Yeah.
I choose to put myself into some kind of character, and that character is part of who I am. I'm the one who came up with the character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part of who I am or part of who I want to be. So I put that on, and that actually helps me expend less energy at the store. And it keeps me feeling safe when I'm at the grocery store, especially if I'm by myself.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're talking about today is it's a biased opinion that we should be able to and that we should unmask all the time.
And in society as we see it right now, there has been a shift of over the last 20 years. About 25, 30 years ago, the subject of autism and ADHD and some of these world processing diagnoses was becoming hugely mainstream. Everyone was talking about it, especially in terms of children and younger adults. Over the last 30 years, that conversation has expanded to be much more inclusive of all ages, going down to, very early developmental childhood, now talking in huge ways as more and more older adults, middle age and up, begin to discover the subject of being neurodivergent, and having understanding about themselves for the first time. So as society has been in this conversation, we've seen an increase in the talking about it, but we've also seen trends. For example, going back to what you said earlier, masking has been deemed as forcing yourself into an inauthentic expression. It's a way of having to conform, and that's typically the language, that it is non-consensual because we have to conform to the expectations of whatever environment that we are stepping into. And in many cases, the encouragement is this blanket: be yourself, don't mask, don't do these things, because quite honestly, you handicap yourself in trying to be something you're not.
And that's where the conversation right now is harming us instead of helping us, because people have this expectation of unmasking means I am showing the whole me to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that that is not at all what we mean when we're talking about unmasking.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do. And wouldn't that be nice if
Mm-hmm.
we never had to try to fit ourselves into different contexts?
Right.
But we do have to try to fit ourselves into different contexts. As an ESL teacher, one of the things that I always would talk to my students about was the language register.
Mm-hmm.
And that you choose to use one language with your friends and another language with your grandma.
Right.
And it's the same thing when we're talking about masking.
Now, also, we want to bring some intersectionality to this. This has also been known as code switching.
Yes.
And so when you're in one group, you behave, you speak, your linguistic patterns, take on one form, and then when you're in another group, a totally different group, you switch in order to fit into that group.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, this is an intersectionality issue of it's not just neurodivergence. It is also, ethnicity. It is gender identity. It is sexual orientation. It is, all of these now come together and talking about, can we be authentic in every circumstance? And one of the things that we've talked about over the last few weeks is that no, society has changed, because the tone of the last 30 years has been toward acceptance and integration. Now the tone is shifting. And now the tone is becoming, this is a condition, with air quotes, meaning that it is a negative impact on your individual well-being, and that there are reasons why you are the way you are, and it is not a function of who you are. It is just the circumstances of what has happened to you. And this creates unsafe spaces. This creates, an attitude, an air of, can I be authentic?
Yeah. And I say yes. You can be authentic. But
Right.
again, it needs to be intentional,
Mm-hmm.
and it needs to be consensual.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I choose which parts of me I'm going to share at any given moment, depending on the situation I am in.
Right.
And that intentionality and that consent is something that happens before we do something. And it informs our choice of, where am I going to go?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to go alone? Am I going to go with somebody? How long am I going to stay? What conditions allow me to stay? What conditions tell me I need to leave?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we're not even aware of the masks that we wear.
Right.
And therein lies the problem. So we're just going, hey, rip off that mask, rip off that mask. Well, a lot of times you rip off the mask and you rip off everything underneath of it too,
Mm-hmm.
because it is so integrated into who you are from birth.
Yeah.
And so we can't just rip off the mask. We have to be aware of what the mask is, what's it doing, how is it informing our decisions, and is it safe for me to take this mask off in this place?
Yeah. AJ had the pleasure, honor, trauma of walking with me when I began the process of taking off a mask that was deeply interwoven into my identity. And that mask, I tried to take it off immediately. But, as you said, it's more like a diagnosis of cancer, where the cancer has woven itself in and around the nerves of a particular area in the body. You can't just take the cancer out, because it has put itself in a very precarious situation. And if you try to take it out, you could cause damage. I was trying to do that. I was trying to pull the mask off, throw it away. But at the same time, I was pulling some very intense and deeply authentic, aspects of who I am, and trying to get rid of them.
Yeah.
We can't just easily separate the mask from authenticity.
Right.
because we've integrated, we have made this a process. And anyone who would be pressuring another person to just get rid of a mask and go completely authentic is not respecting that person's authenticity.
I agree.
Because recognizing that our masks are deeply integrated into our self, our, we are
Our capital S self.
capital S self, it is so integrated into that someone who does care about us and wants us to be authentic should be leading with a respect for the full authentic self, even the parts that are intertwined with our mask.
Mm-hmm. And we, as self advocates, need to be having that conversation with people, and people who support us because they are advocates for us in the community. They need to understand the different reasons why somebody would choose to wear a certain mask. For example, why would I choose to wear a pair of dress pants and a button down collared shirt and a blazer? Y'all have never seen me in that stuff. That's not really who I am. But there are situations that I might need that, and that it's my benefit to do that. If I'm going to go ask somebody for $500,000, to work on a project at Umbrella ND, then I need to put myself into the environment that I'm going into.
Yeah.
And I don't want them spending energy focused on things that don't matter in that environment.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can choose that the mask I'm going to wear at that time is maybe a little bit more comfortable in those kinds of clothes.
Right.
I also get to choose. I have the privilege of having enough money to be able to buy those clothes in the fabrics that work for me.
Yeah.
And that's a huge privilege. But what if I didn't have that privilege? That's a problem, right? And that's part of this masking conversation. Is it is a very privileged thing to say, go unmasked all the time. It is flat out not safe.
Very true. And that's the reality that we are facing right now.
Yeah.
As a transgender woman, we had a moment of safety in society. In the grand scheme of society's history, there was a brief spark of safety. Now that safety has been eroded piece by piece by piece. And the same is happening with the wider neurodivergent community in the different experiences that we have. There is less safety. There is less margin of acceptance and accommodation and support. There, one of the things that I was very, thrilled with over the last few years was seeing stores offer lower sensory experiences of shopping, and the music would be turned down, the lights would be diminished somewhat, and the crowds would be limited. And so there would be, a level of accommodation. But we are watching as businesses realize that is time when they could be doing full business and not accommodation business. And so taking back some of those, accessibility offerings is a measure of how unsupportive the environment is getting.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that this is not, this was not the best answer, but knowing that we could walk into a setting and deal with it in a way that we were comfortable with enabled us to function. Now, there are still some places that offer supportive environments, but in a growing atmosphere of discrimination, harassment, social rejection, in a growing field of incivility when it comes to interpersonal conversations, when it comes to judgment based on appearance more and more than it has been, we are seeing a valid need to begin to shift back to this idea of I am the one in power. I get to control how I express myself authentically, but also how I can protect myself. And again, the capital S is just as important as the small s. The idea of my identity is still secure.
Mm-hmm.
My identity is still safe. I am still who I am wherever I go. What I wear as protection, what I wear as a suit of armor, what I wear as my Iron Man suit, you know, is is for my protection. It is for my survival. It is for my self-preservation. It's to keep me functional in a society that doesn't want to join me in functioning.
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely a switch. And I think, Angela, using that illustration just got me pondering this, because so many people have talked about being neurodivergent and calling it their superhero. Well, you know what? Iron Man is a superhero, but he uses armor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, we we can still be the superhero, but we have to pick and choose how we're going to protect ourselves.
Right. And that's a skill, right? That
Yeah.
picking and choosing. And I think that's where, the overall conversation of masking has really let people down. I should say the conversation of unmasking
Hmm.
has really let people down, because it is this binary,
Yeah.
right? It's masking bad, unmasking good. There's no binary there.
No.
It's it's not at an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah.
And we need to learn skills um, of self-awareness,
Hmm.
and again, self-advocacy, in being able to choose and consent to how we will present ourselves. And it's in that choice and consent that we maintain authenticity in the way that I think most people who actually are talking about masking and unmasking, I think they just don't realize this.
Yeah.
You know, I think that a lot of people who do have that very binary thinking, who are like, rip off the masks and be yourself, they're still accommodating others because they have a house full of neurodivergent people and their child is struggling. Their child needs them to be there for them, even though authentically, deep down inside, what they want is they want to be, away from everybody, and in a
Mm.
room by themselves, and all of that, but they can't because they need to wear the parent mask.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you are having a conversation with when you are having a conversation with people at work and you're really excited about something and you're like me and you want to go, oh my God, this is the best fucking thing ever. And you get all excited, but you realize that you're surrounded by a bunch of fourth graders.
Right.
You have the teacher mask on. Excuse me. You have the teacher mask on and you realize that you're not going to say it like that.
Right.
That's still a mask.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the whole idea of what a mask is and full 100% authenticity, we all wear masks all the time.
We do.
It's about knowing, and I know I've said this a lot already today, but it really is about self-awareness, choice, and consent.
Yeah.
And as long as we have that choice, and it is our choice.
It is.
It is our choice. We don't, I'm hearing all of these arguments in my head right now. Here's what I mean by we have a choice. We need to make money.
Mm-hmm.
We are choosing to get a job out in society
Mm-hmm.
in order to meet our need that we have.
Right.
Nobody's coming at you with a gun pointed to your head and saying you have to make money.
Right.
Is there a lack of choice in living in a capitalist society? Yes, there is, but we still get to choose how we live in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to hunt for jobs.
Right.
I may not find exactly the job that I want, but I'm still going to choose this job and I'm going to choose whether or not I'm going to take this job over here. So we
Absolutely.
do have some choice in that. And we have consent. That consent going, I consent to wearing these clothes in this place.
Mm-hmm.
I consent to using this language in this place.
Right.
And I, I could and want to have this whole conversation of how the different languages we use make us all bilingual and that the education system is really letting people down by not recognizing the many different versions of a language that people use.
Yeah.
So privilege again comes into play here.
Mm-hmm.
The more access that you have to different options, the more privilege you have.
Absolutely.
The more choice you have.
Yeah.
And that's why some people do feel like they don't have a choice, and
Mm-hmm.
some people do feel that it is an injustice that they have to wear a mask.
Right.
So,
And you know, removing a degree of choice, you know, is a disempowering event.
yes.
And when we talk about, you know, this is the meta narrative right now, and that is the removal of access to rights that we have been, you know, incorporating. You know, this access to rights for people has been sort of the drive, and now we're seeing that access to rights cut back. And so feeling, you know, having been empowered and then losing that can be demoralizing. And so we have to go through the process of re-empowering people and giving people that sense of, this is your power to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is your ability to do this. So whether you are a young person and you were diagnosed early and you've had access to all of the different forms of accommodation and accessibility and, you know, being authentic in who you are without having to worry about it, or you are somebody who is definitely coming to the game very late in life and you are coming into awareness of who you are right now at a time when there is a shift. It doesn't matter where you are in that, learning that you have the power to be authentic even through adaptation to the environment that you're in, that context.
Mhm.
You are still authentically you. You are just now in a context where that looks somewhat different. I think of the show Mad Men. 15 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. And it was about ad executives in the late 50s, early 60s. And these individuals would present themselves one way at work for image, for success, but then go home and be totally different.
Mhm.
And we hear these stories all the time of, individuals who look beautiful out in public, but then go home and things are not like what they appear in public. That was the negative connotation, the connotation of hiding, the connotation of preserving an image. We're not talking about that. We're talking about being who you are authentically, but learning and using the skills of adaptation to be able to walk into a setting, know what is necessary for your protection, and then be able to function in your genuine identity, your strength of who you are. That idea of being able to step into a situation, you don't have to worry about what are you giving up,
Mhm.
because in that place, in that moment, you are being as safe as humanly possible. And in that safety, as you feel safe, then you are able to bring the strengths that you possess into play instead of hiding them and keeping them hidden as may have been necessary under keeping up appearances. Because in a lot of cases, making ourselves small is what led us to discovery of how big we really are.
Mhm.
In my former career, I kept myself small, doing the things that I needed to do in order to just stay under the radar.
Yep.
And then I realized I'm too damn big for the system that I'm in. I am more than the system that I'm in.
Mhm.
And I deserve more of that. And as I made that transition to being aware of I'm bigger than the system I'm in, I realized a lot of the strengths and the skills and the experience that I had became transferable into new settings. And now I can walk into a setting authentically looking like I do now, or going natural is what I call it. No wig, no makeup, throwing on a t-shirt and a passable pair of jeans, and walking into a situation and still being authentically me,
Mhm.
while at the same time not worrying as much about what is happening. Now, there is a trade-off, and it is a trade-off in terms of energy, because I can go into a situation appearing as I do, knowing that given the environment, it's not as safe, but I have a lot more energy to do the things that I need to do. because I draw energy from the expression. I draw energy from who I am. Whenever I am not all made up and feeling good about myself, there is a noticeable energy drop. People have said, we know the moment when you are yourself. And in many cases, it's the moment that the wig is settled. And there is a shift in energy. There is a shift in my ability to function in a setting. And for me, that is the biggest determination of the mask that I choose, is how much energy transference do I need to deal with? You know, how much do I have the capacity to deal with, but how much do I want to deal with also? You know, I'm late diagnosed in everything. I came to awareness of my identity, my sexual orientation, and my neurodivergence between the ages of 49 and 52. And that was only a few years ago. I'm celebrating my 6th year of being out in December. But there are those times when I feel like I definitely got to pull back from who I was to be able to function where I am now. One of the things that a lot of people notice is that my voice is not ultra feminine. And I can make it sound ultra feminine, but I don't want to. One, it takes a lot more energy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot more thought, concentration, and shifting around of musculature. But also, it's not nearly what it used to be. And for the last few weeks, I've been going natural a lot more. And one of the things that I notice whenever I'm going natural is that after a day or two, my vocal pattern shifts. I get to talking more like this, and I start talking deeper in resonance, but also my accent's a little thicker. And, I use this whenever I'm in natural form to be able to pass in society. This is my mask.
Or when there's a mechanical issue on the car that needs to be dealt with.
When there's a mechanical issue, or when I need to call and advocate for myself with the IRS or a doctor, or I need to advocate for someone else.
Yep.
In which case it gets a lot deeper and my accent gets a lot thicker, and it's like, hey, listen here. But yeah, I use that as one of my tools.
Yeah.
To be able to get the things that I need in order to operate in the circumstances that I am in. Does it bug me? Hell yeah. It does bug me. But what bugs me more is not being able to get the thing that I need. Not being able to function.
And yes, it is an injustice that in one form you can't have access to this thing, or that you have to work much harder to have access to this thing. Yes, that is an injustice.
Yeah.
And we can work on rectifying this injustice.
Right.
But while we do, there are masks that we will wear.
Yeah.
So that we can finally have access to this thing without having to wear them.
Right.
And again, the more privilege one has, the less time it takes to get there.
Yeah.
So for those folks who are able to have those very privileged conversations of saying, just unmask. I I really want them to ask themselves, is that realistic for every person in every situation?
Right.
And I'm even going to push a little and say, ask yourself if you are actually doing that in every situation. And then come and tell the world how you get through all of this world like that. Because I don't know. For me, like, truly masking saves so much energy.
Yeah.
And
It does.
I've talked about this before. I would walk down the hall and somebody would say, "How are you?" And I would say, "I'm fantastic. I wouldn't have it any other way."
Yeah.
And I had a coded, scripted thing that I said.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to pull that off. I was like, that's not the truth.
Right.
And you know what? It was exhausting
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't necessarily want to say the truth either.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm trying to think of, how can I be authentic? And well, you know what? If I was being truly authentic, I wouldn't say anything at all.
Right. You
Because
would just run
frankly, I don't care to have a conversation with you.
it.
Like, why are
Run
you
and move
even
on. That's it.
exactly? Why are you looking at me and why are you talking to me? And I have this mission and doesn't have anything to do with you. Um, I can't do that.
Right.
And now let's look at people who struggle a little bit more. So let's say a skill is being able to have that social adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
That is much more difficult for a lot of people.
It
And it
is.
is something that they have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So the self-advocacy piece there is you have someone with you and you have a support person with you. If you're being your authentic self, does your authentic self want to have to take somebody with them to tell them how to behave? No, they don't.
No.
But it's safer for them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They can, I don't want to have my husband with me to go enjoy a farmer's market,
Right.
but I need him or somebody else who can, thank you, Widgie, who can see when I am getting overwhelmed, because oftentimes I get overwhelmed with before I realize that it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter. I am extremely self-aware,
Yeah.
but it can happen like that.
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
can happen that fast. All it takes in the grocery store is to walk by the bakery area and suddenly one of the alarms goes off
Mm-hmm.
and it's a high pitched sound.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all it takes. And then I may need somebody to steer me away from the area because I'm just stuck there.
Right.
Um, or I can't finish my grocery shopping because I have to get the hell out and I leave the cart and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are those times when you need that support and you don't have those skills of being able to adapt to the situation.
And also just the general understanding of body doubling. Having
Mm-hmm.
another body with you makes the job more capable of being done.
Yep. And your authentic self may wish that you didn't have to,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe you do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, been cleaning out my mom's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I asked my daughter in law to go with me. And I said, honestly, you don't have to pick up anything. You don't have to put anything in boxes. You know, you don't have to do any of that. You can, but you don't have to. I just need you here with me,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so I fully recognize that not everybody is able to choose their mask at any point in time because they don't have energetic access to that, or they have high support needs and they need somebody else to help that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But for those of us who can, we need to understand that expecting people to fully unmask is just as biased as expecting people to know
Yeah.
when and how and be able to easily switch from one to another.
Yeah.
Both of those are biased, and that is why the binary of masked or unmasked does not work. And I hope that people walk away from our conversation today understanding that this binary does not exist,
Right.
that we need to really, really think about pathologizing masking
Mm-hmm.
because that's harmful,
Yeah.
and it is uninformed.
Absolutely.
And making somebody feel bad because they are choosing to wear a mask, even if they're not choosing to wear a mask, making somebody feel bad because
Yeah.
of it, making them feel less than, making them feel like they are doing something wrong is not the way to support somebody.
Exactly. And for people who are like me, who have sort of emerged later in life, whether you call them habits or you call them coping mechanisms or you call them the the just the hats you wear,
Mm-hmm.
many of us learned how to be successful with those forms of mask. You do not have to give those things up. If you found success in those, even if they are an energy drain to some experience, some level of your experience or not, you do not have to give them up just to accommodate this binary understanding of you must be unmasked in order to be authentic. If you have if you have integrated those habits, coping mechanisms, the hats that you wear in different settings,
Skills.
skills into your daily life, and you are comfortable in who you are in your daily life, that is authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, maybe you do go to work and you put on one hat, and then you come home and you put on another hat. Maybe you go to a big event and you put on a hat, but then you are more, outgoing and intimate in a smaller setting. Whatever those coping mechanisms are, whatever those skills are that you've learned over the course of your life, just because you got a diagnosis that says, oh, as part of your diagnosis, you've had to mask things, doesn't mean you have to give those up.
Right.
Being able to integrate skills and the ability to read a room and adapt, or to be able to chameleon and fit in, those are not always a negative. They are sometimes highly valued skills.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a later in life diagnosed individual, whether it is self diagnosis or official diagnosis of some sort, your being you is your choice. It's not the rule of any manual of behavior. It's not, controlled by the gatekeeping of individuals who determine whether or not you are enough of whatever label that they want to put on you. You are who you are, and you have as much right to be authentic and comfortable in how you function.
I want to talk about the hats that you're talking about.
Yeah.
There are pictures out there of people, usually a woman, wearing a whole bunch of different hats.
Yeah.
I like to have the conversation a little bit differently. Because this is fun. In my opinion, this is fun. Imagine a ball pit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of those balls are those plastic or rubbery ones, and we can jump into that and not hurt them
Right.
or ourselves. Some of those balls, a few of them, are fragile, very thin glass.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the balls that we need to account for, and those are the ones that we need to focus on and pay attention to.
Yeah.
So we take those and we put them in a protective case. We carry them with us. We hold them as we're walking through this ball pit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we ask somebody else to hold them.
Yeah.
Maybe we put them up on a shelf because there's this ball over here that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
That's still, those are still my balls.
Yeah.
I am still protecting them. I am still caring for them. Stop laughing because I said balls. But right now, I am consenting to focusing on this one that needs my attention right now.
Yeah. I wasn't laughing because you said balls.
Okay, well, I was.
I was laughing because you said my balls.
I have balls. They are fragile glass balls. And sometimes I have to put them away or ask somebody else to hold them, okay?
But they're to build on your illustration, not only are there the typical that we can just move right through, and the fragile that we need to take extra care with, there are also essentially morning stars. They're balls with sharp spikes on them that if we press too hard on them, there is pain and there is suffering. And I think that there are elements of our masks where if we get too close to those, we have to acknowledge this is not healthy. This is not safe. Doesn't matter how safe I am out here. If it is causing me such excruciating pain or suffering to do this thing, then I have to, in this case, unmask. And that's healthy. Being able to determine this is the mask that I need to be okay versus getting rid of this mask in the process of being not okay is just as much a part of our choice and our personal empowerment.
Yeah, and in that case, we take that ball and it becomes one of the precious ones that we protect.
Yeah.
And what if that ball, though, is, excuse me, is a harmful situation that I am put in for whatever reason? I am forced at work. I have to do meetings. And for this particular one, I have to travel.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm going to lose my job if I don't do it. And I choose to keep my job. So I'm going to do this travel thing. And in doing this travel thing, there are going to be some people who don't understand me or whatever.
Right.
I'm going to wear a freaking mask. to put myself into the situation that is the least harmful.
Right.
I am going to wear masks that preserve my safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do that if all of my little glass balls are around in that pit and I don't know where they are and they're not being protected.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point. That self-awareness, knowing what I need, knowing what I need to protect, knowing when to set it aside and when to carry it.
Yeah.
Then those glass balls are never in there amongst all of the other ones with, the high chance that they're going to be broken.
Right. Or you're going to experience pain.
Right.
So,
We're deep today.
yeah, as we kind of come into our closing, what can we do? How do we go forward in this? And I think one of the things that we've been very clear about is that you are the one who gets to make the choice on what the mask is you need to be in your situation. The strategy that you use to function is your choice. So be intentional about it. Don't just mask for other people. Be you in your masking.
Yes.
That's
You choose your masks. You build your masks. You make your masks.
Yeah.
Choose the one that you want and that you need. Learn that self-awareness so that you can be intentional and consensual. Those are the two things. When we are able to do that, when we are able to be intentional and give consent, we can be our authentic self.
Absolutely.
In a way that preserves and sustains us and our safety.
Yeah.
And helps us get what we want.
And if you are around people who are having to make that choice of masking or not, be supportive. Be supportive when they need to do that. Be supportive of how they need to do that. Be a part of giving them that ability to have an informed basis of choice. So that they know. I mean, don't hide information from them to protect them. Oh my God, don't ever hide anything from me. Don't ever hide information from me to protect me, or you will piss me off.
Right.
Because I make informed decisions about my safety.
Yes.
If you are keeping something from me and you say you support me, you're not supporting me any longer.
Right. And that's a big thing, right? That informed choice.
Absolutely. And if you are, go ahead.
If you are supporting somebody who maybe is like, oh, I have to go to this meeting and, I'm just going to use my own experience again. I have to go to the military ball, the Marine Corps ball, and I have to wear a fancy dress and it's, all fancy schmancy and all of that stuff. Then the conversation that we have is, okay, I am choosing to go to this thing. Nobody's forcing me. I am choosing to go to this thing with my husband, who is a Marine. And how can I do that as myself?
Right.
So, I'm going to choose a dress that is the most my style. I'm going to create a game for myself while I'm there so that I can play this game. Nobody knows I'm doing it, but I'm playing this game and I'm having fun. And really, I look like I'm enjoying the ball itself.
Yes.
No, I don't enjoy that. But that's how somebody could have supported me in that is, well, how can you? Is this your choice to go? Yes. Okay, so how can you do it and waste the least amount of energy.
Right.
And it can be pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great way to support somebody, is to ask those questions and kind of reframe that whole conversation to make it more positive.
Yeah.
And then everybody can help support others by being a safe environment,
Yes.
so that it's easier for people to make the decision to be in that environment that you've created, because they know that they can take off as many masks as they choose
Right.
to be in that situation.
Yeah. Environments, people will say, well, public is a safe environment, but it's not. Public is defined by the people in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're out in public with someone who needs to mask and you have some control over it, try to create a bubble of safety for that unmasking. If you want them to unmask and be comfortable, then create an environment where that is possible. Create the safety bubble around them so that it would be safe for them to
Right.
unmask.
Right. Kind of like what happened when you came to visit.
Mm,
It was not necessarily feeling safe for you to come onto a military base,
right.
but you felt safe with me
Mm-hmm.
and Jordan on that base.
Yes.
And so therefore you were able to come and visit and hang out and that sort of thing. So the overall environment wasn't the safest,
Absolutely.
but you chose to be
Yeah.
there because of the small pocket of safety that you had.
Absolutely. And that's how I determine for myself when there is enough safety for me to be completely unmasked. And, I am not, this is who I am. The great irony of being a transgender woman is that my mask requires me putting things on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my unmasking requires me putting things
Putting
on.
things on.
Me masking requires not putting anything on and being natural in a state. It's not natural to me because what's natural to me comes alive whenever I look like this.
Yeah.
So the ironies of recognizing that, sometimes our masks are actually the antithesis of what you would expect.
Both and.
Yeah. So, in closing, for those of you who have joined us for this conversation, help us move from a binary of saying you either unmask or you live miserable, because those are not choices.
Yeah.
Those are conditions. Those are more than a condition, they're an ultimatum. Being able to mask when we need to in order to feel safe, in order to feel more natural in an environment, is a choice that we get to make. And it is something that we can do freely, and it is something that we can do without conforming to other people's expectations, but instead it is an expression of who we are at our deepest sense of self. So help us to be authentic in how we express ourselves, whether it is unmasked, masked, or anything in between.
That's a wrap on another episode of Sausage Links. If today's conversation resonated with you, or if you're using any of the strategies we discussed in your personal or collective advocacy work, we want to hear about it. Your experiences help build the community knowledge that makes this work possible. Sausage Links is brought to you by Umbrella ND, and like everything we do, this podcast exists because of community support. The community-supported self-advocacy survival guide is being written by intersectional neurodivergent folks for intersectional neurodivergent folks. And that means it's not funded by the usual suspects who want to sanitize our stories or profit off our struggles. If this podcast is useful to you, if Sausage is a resource you want to see completed, or if you believe that neurodivergent advocacy should be led by the communities most impacted, consider making a donation to Umbrella ND. Every contribution, whether it's $5 or $50, helps us keep this work community-controlled and accessible to everyone who needs it. You can find donation information and links to all our other resources in the show notes. Until next time, keep linking up, keep advocating, and remember, you're not alone in this fight. We've got your back. Take care of yourselves and each other.